We do have a terrific show planned for you today. We're going to be talking to Xiomaro about his photography. He's an internationally exhibited photographer. We'll be speaking with Jim McCarty, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer and a drummer with the Yardbirds. Also speaking with Michael McCormick, an actor who's currently in Theater People at Westport Country Playhouse. And let me introduce our first guest, Xiomaro. He's here in the studios, downtown Bridgeport, Connecticut. And he's an extraordinary photographer and has exhibited internationally. And he's been on the show before, but hey, this is the first time I've met you, so I'm so happy that you came to the studios from New Jersey to be here in person. Welcome.
I'm very honored to be here, and now I can add to my resume that I was the opening act for the Yardbirds.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, not too many people can say that, right? Well, we've spoken to you about so many of your exhibits in the past, and we'll probably go back and visit that. But what I really want to talk about is the Haze Gallery in Berlin, Germany, that has announced it's going to be representing you. First of all, congratulations. And second of all, tell us about the gallery and how all of this came about.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get gallery representation, especially if you're doing something that's not considered safe or easy. I've contacted many galleries, and I'm surprised at how many galleries are still intrigued by presenting portraits of Marilyn Monroe, for instance. And nothing wrong with Marilyn Monroe. I can see why there's an appeal to that. But it's been done to death, you know. Of course, galleries have to make money. So it makes sense for them to have the greatest hits, if you will, and have those out there. So it's hard to be doing something a little bit different. My photographs, although many of them are based on the national parks, I also do a lot of street photography in New York City. And many of them veer on being abstract. Some of them are very blurry in an artistic way. So, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can see something in it. So I've contacted many galleries that have not had any success. But I came across an open call from Haze Gallery in Berlin.
Okay.
And they said they were, I was reading their call, and they specified they were looking for artists that are doing something a little bit different, more adventurous, kind of pushing at the edges. So I didn't really think much of it. I figured, I'll apply, and I'll probably never hear back from them. But I figured no harm in trying. So I waited pretty much to the last day of the call, and I submitted my images of these street photography photographs I've been creating over the last 10 years in New York City. And the following day, which would have been January 1st of this year, I got an email from them acknowledging that they received my submission. So I was kind of surprised at that, because oftentimes you don't hear from them for a while, if at all. And then later on that same day, I got another email saying they accepted me. And it was so sudden that I was almost not sure if this was this a scam? Was this fake? So I kind of looked into it again. But sure enough, it was legit. And as I looked even deeper into it, then I started reading about the woman who runs the gallery. Her name is Irina Rasinovich. And it was an interesting story, and I felt a connection with it because she was born in Russia. She had a gallery there, and but then she had breast cancer. So she went to Germany to seek treatment. She overcame the cancer through the treatment, and then she ended up staying there. And so she established her gallery there, as well as a fashion magazine called Purple Haze Magazine. I like the name there, very Hendrix. And so I thought her story was really interesting because I also had cancer, had prostate cancer back in 2004. And that actually triggered me into leaving my prior career as an entertainment lawyer and going into photography. So I just thought it was interesting that her cancer kind of led her to planting new roots in Germany and starting the magazine and the gallery. So I don't remember now if I included any information about my cancer situation and my materials when I submitted to the gallery, but perhaps if I did, maybe she detected some kinship there that maybe helped me in getting accepted.
Well, I think any gallery owner has to have a connection to the art and then also the artist for it to be a successful partnership. And you've just described an incredible partnership and a connection that it's almost like it had to be.
No, I think you're right about that. It should not be purely a commercial consideration, although I understand for some galleries, that's the path they choose. But I think if you have somebody who has that kinship or that connection, it's easier for them to sell the work, so to speak, and present it and promote it and advocate for the artist.
I find it interesting the way you're talking about a kinship, because a kinship can be created without necessarily knowing it's there. It's like that invisible thread that connects you to your art, and then you discover a shared experience later on.
Yeah, a lot of it is, it can be subconscious. I mean, even with my own photographs, like for instance with a painter, they choose to determine what's going to be on the canvas because they're painting every stroke. When I take a photograph on the street in New York City, I'm just photographing whatever's there. It's very immediate because there's crowds and pushing and pickpockets and all the rest. And so sometimes when I see the photograph, things start to reveal themselves that I think I was gravitating towards in taking the picture that's at the subconscious level, things that attract me. Because after a while, I start to look at the pictures and I see a theme kind of emerging from it. So I think there is a lot of things that, we don't think about overtly. And those connections sometimes, start to form with pictures and even with other people. I mean, I haven't met Irina. I haven't gone to Germany yet, and she hasn't been to the Northeast here yet. But through the pictures and through the bio and other things, those connections form.
What does that mean for an artist to be represented? Is it similar to like an actor or a musician or a writer to have someone in your corner, or
agent?
Because is there such mercenary, unique industries?
Yeah, I think it does differ from gallery to gallery. Some will do more than others. Some are very passive. There's some galleries I've encountered where they simply put your work into a database, and then they have an audience that checks the database. If they find something they like, then they make a purchase. That's one way of doing it. It's fine. It's not my preferred way. I'd rather have more of a relationship. Since I'm part of Haze Gallery for a very short period of time, it only came up in January. I'm still exploring what this is going to lead to. But I think ideally, it should be more of a personal nature. It should be, trying to find opportunities for the work to get exhibited, as well as getting sold, of course, because, the money that comes in enables me to make more photographs. I don't know if you know this, but when I was a lawyer, I also was a manager. So I managed a pop artist on EMI Records. And so that was also a very personal endeavor, because you kind of have to know what the artist is about, what he or she is looking to accomplish, and what can I do as a business person in helping them to reach those goals, because it's a win-win. If I can help that person be successful, then I'm also successful, and I make some money from it too, because I'm working on a percentage. So I'm hoping that Haze Gallery has that philosophy, and I think that they do, from what I've read. And she has already helped me out with a small group exhibit that was held in Manhattan a couple of weeks back. So she kind of found out about it, told me, like the day before. She says, I'm not sure if you have time to submit to this thing, but if not, then next year, they'll probably do it again. And I'm a hustler, so I just stayed up and I just got the work done. I submitted it, and I was in the exhibit. So I'm very grateful to her that she brought about this extra opportunity for exposure.
Yeah. Right. And in terms of her representing you, will she have the actual art? Have you sent that to her in Germany? Okay.
Yeah, good question. So in the world that we live in now, which is very digital, it's a lot easier. So I sent her the files of the images that she selected for representation, so she has them. And what I'm hoping will transpire in the coming months, this year, will be either a solo exhibition or maybe have the pictures as part of a group exhibition. And depending on the logistics of it, I can either print the pictures myself, which is what I usually do, and frame them and get them over there. Or maybe I'll just go to Germany and I can make some arrangements with a local printer to have them printed and kind of put it together that way. So I'm hoping that I'll have an opportunity to go there, because I like the more of a personal nature. Like we were just talking about it earlier. I've done several interviews, through by phone here, and it really thrills me to be in person and see you eye to eye. It's just a different vibe when you do it that way.
Totally.
So sure, it's a lot easier if she does the exhibit on her own for me out there, but I have no problem going out there and pitching in and doing some of the work.
Right, and what a great opportunity to travel and possibly meet other artists that she represents and see the work in person and meet her.
Yeah, she has 16 other artists, so she's got a pretty good roster there that she had selected, and I'm familiarizing myself with their work. And it's really interesting because a lot of it is very different from what I do, so there's quite a variety. A couple of them, I've interacted with them through Instagram, and so I'm trying to build a relationship that way. But I'm rooting for everybody. I hope we all do very well.
Now, are some of them Americans also?
I think so, yes. I'm still going through each one's bio, but I know there's one in England, I think Italy, Spain. It seems to be international, so it's nice to have a global representation of different perspectives instead of it always being American.
Right, and also different medias, and you obviously are, well, you may be the only photographer who's there.
They have some other photographers there. I know they have sculptors and many painters, so it's a nice mix, and I like that, It makes me think of the Factory with Andy Warhol. You just have a big mix of people, and you never know what comes out of it.
Yes. Now, your work that you have, that will be on exhibit, is this photography is very abstract, very colorful, and I think what I was reading, instead of, because a lot of people might be picturing you're on the streets of New York and taking pictures of people, but it's more reflective in a lot of ways, but it's a reflection.
Yes, I guess I should... I just assume everybody understands that because I photograph that way all the time, so I have to remember that. Some of the pictures I take are obviously, of candid shots of folks on the street, but what I really like doing is actually photographing things off of a reflection. So what I'll do is I'll photograph a shop window in Times Square, and I'm taking a photograph of the window as it is reflecting what's happening across the street, but also what's happening inside the store. So what happens is you get these layers of imagery, and when you see them, you might think this was all photoshopped, or there's some filter, or in fact, I have uploaded some of the images on certain social media sites, and I get this warning message that pops up that says, we don't allow AI images, and it makes me laugh. It's not an AI image; it's actually straight out of my camera. But it's by working off of these reflections. That's what gives you these layers, this abstraction. Sometimes you get these very interesting juxtapositions of signage or different kinds of people.
Yes.
And then it's almost like you can interpret it in many different ways depending on what you bring to looking at the picture. But it's not just shop windows. It's also reflections off of cars, off of their windshields, especially the buses. Sometimes it's off of puddles of water after a rain, on the sidewalk. So it's really anything that might, reflect. And I've done it in other places, like I did it at Piccadilly Circus in London. But it's harder to do in other places. If you're like in Times Square or most places in Manhattan, there's just so many windows and there's so much glass from some of the corporate buildings. I've photographed off of corporate buildings, and there's all these digital billboards. You just get this chaotic mayhem, but in a very artful way. So I just find that really interesting.
It's like an overload, right, of stimulus.
Yeah, it's very hallucinatory, And in some other cases, what I've done is I've intentionally blurred things, too. So I'll put a slower shutter speed, and I'll get these blurs because everybody's always rushing about in Manhattan. And those also give you like a very dreamy, ethereal sense. And if you combine that with some reflections, some people don't even know how to look at it. It's like, what am I looking at? Is it upside down? What's going on here? But what it does is it kind of sucks you into it because there's a lot to look at in the picture. And what's interesting is that it's at the intersection of abstraction and reality, because it is a real thing. If I bring the person to the very window that I was photographing at, and if they can focus their attention so that they're forming a frame and excluding what's in the periphery of their vision, they'll see what I see. But most people aren't looking that way.
It must make it really fun to go and look through the images after you've shot them. I don't know if they do contact sheets anymore, but, to see what you got.
Yeah, I do the contact sheets digitally on my computer. I have a program that lays them out similar to a contact sheet, and I do go through them. and they're all very interesting. Some are not so interesting. Sometimes I have a hard time choosing because I have variations that are very similar, but there are enough differences to distinguish them one from the other. It's almost akin to Monet when he painted those haystacks, and it's the same haystack over and over again, but he painted them under different lighting conditions, different seasons, and so you get different colors. And so sometimes I go back to the same place, and it's constantly changing because it depends on what's happening on the billboards across the street or who's walking by or what's inside the store.
What's something that might really catch your eye if you were looking through 1,000 images that you just shot on a given day?
Just little surprises, juxtapositions that it might have registered in my brain subconsciously, which may be the reason why I took it, but maybe it just wasn't apparent because, again, I'm looking to make sure I don't get hit by a car. No one's pickpocketing me.
Right.
No one's going to punch me in the face because they think I'm taking a picture of them when I'm not. So there's a little bit of danger out there. But I'll give you an example. There was one that I noticed, and I had to take a picture of it. It's kind of humorous, but it was a big billboard that said "End Horse Slaughter." I think it might have been by PETA or somebody. But what happened was when I looked up at it, there was a one of those cross, walk, don't walk signs, and it was partially blocking it. So when I glanced up and saw it, I go, what? What it said was "End Horse Laughter." It was blocking the S. And I go, what? And then I looked at, it's slaughter. This thing is blocking my view. So I took a picture of that because I just thought it was kind of humorous.
Right.
But those kinds of things happen sometimes. And, I just think there is a lot of humor in some of my work, too, because you'll see some really interesting people in it and just some really odd things. Some of it is also a commentary on, the sense of commercialism and competition that happens and the sense of identity. There's one photograph that I have of a person, and because of all these reflections, it's almost like there's a thought bubble above his head. And it shows, a very pretty model with blonde hair, blue eyes, and he's an Asian, And you can kind of take that many different ways. It's like, because I know when I was growing up, back in the, why not? I'll say I'm on my age. Back in the 60s and 70s, it was a different time period. And it was sometimes a little hard to fit in, because, it was a different world back then, which it seems like we're retreating back to in some ways. But, sometimes you really don't know how to fit in if you're not, the default culture, let's just say. And so some of the photos will catch my attention if I perceive those suggestions in the imagery. And also just a sense of commercialism. You just see layers of shoes and TV shows and T-shirts, and some of them are crass, and some of them have more substance to them. So all that really interests me for reasons I'm not sure why, but seems to interest other people too.
Right. And what is the camera that you're using? Because I know that you've given classes on actually using your phone as a camera.
Yes, I do smartphone workshops.
And that workshop was something I always wanted to go to, but never got there. But what phone? What camera are you using in New York when you do this abstract work?
Yeah, most of my work has been with a smaller camera made by Panasonic. It's called a Panasonic Lumix. And it is almost identical to a Leica camera, which is very popular for street photography, but is way beyond my bank account. They charge a lot of money for those cameras. But it works perfectly fine. It's small, so it's stealthy. It's black, so you don't really notice it. And I tape it up so you don't see the logos and all that to make it less noticeable, a little bit less noticeable. So I get good quality images. But there are many images that I have that are also taken with my cell phone. And this is an older phone. This is like an iPhone 7. And they look perfectly fine. If you print them up really large, like 17 inches by 25 inches, they hold up. There's no sense that it looks like a regular camera. So, it's really more about seeing than the actual equipment. And sometimes there's an old photographer saying that the best camera is the one that you happen to have with you, which is very much true. Right. If I don't have that Panasonic, but I always have my phone, I'm holding it right now as we speak, I'll just take a picture with that as opposed to losing that opportunity. Some pictures I have taken, especially when I went to London with a really large DSLR camera, which is a Nikon. But those are so big, it's like pointing a bazooka at somebody. Right. It's hard to be stealthy.
You don't want to do that in New York City, do you?
No, especially these days. Yeah.
There's so many things I wanted to talk about, and the time is just flying by. But I want to make mention of the fact that you're best known for your national park photography, and Earth Day is coming up. Are you going to be doing anything interesting?
I'm trying to. It's amazing how a national park can be a hard sell for some places. I just got rejected by a museum in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh, but I'm going to call you out. And they said, well, it's a local park, so maybe it's better for Connecticut. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. It's a national historical park. It was created by an act of Congress, and it represents an American painting icon, Julian Alden Weir.
Right.
So some folks just don't get it, and that's fine. I just move on and find other places. So right now, unfortunately, no. But I am talking with the Mattituck Museum in, I'm forgetting, Waterbury, Connecticut.
Right.
And so we're thinking about putting something together for 2026 for America's 250th celebration. So we'll see.
Now, for people who like to see the photos, you have a book of the Weir. How would they be able to get that book?
Yeah, it's called Weir Farm National Historic Site. It's published by Arcadia. They can certainly pick it up on Amazon, but if they go to my website, Amazon doesn't take as much of my money. So it helps me to go to my website, which is Xiomaro.com. It's Xiomaro.com. And actually, you just reminded me of something. If they want to see the pictures, they can visit their friendly local Congressman Jim Himes, which is just a block away from where we're talking right now. And he's had my photographs up in his office for the past, 10 or 11 years. So they can see an exhibit over there.
Well, we could just walk over there after the show, Mike.
All right.
Xio, thank you so much. And I'm going to save these other 20 questions for the next time.
Have me come back. I'll open up for another famous artist. Maybe, I don't know. Queen, Led Zeppelin, somebody.
Well, we'll try to make that happen.
Please.
But thank you again, and we wish you the best at the new gallery in Germany and with your photography anywhere you go. And again, thank you for coming into the studio.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Xio.
We're going to be back with our next guest, drummer Jim McCarty.